Heading into this NHL draft and most likely heading into next season, there is going to be a lot of hype surrounding Jack Hughes and Kaapo Kakko, and when you talk about next year's Calder Trophy, those are most likely the two names that are going to be brought up the most. But in today's video, I want to talk about 5 already drafted NHL prospects that I think are going to come in next season and really be a huge impact for their teams and maybe even get some consideration for the Calder Trophy. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Starting off the video with Ryan Poehling of the Montreal Canadiens, and obviously we did already kind of get a glimpse of what he can do at the NHL level with the hat-trick in his debut, but I honestly think he's going to be a big impact player for Montreal next season. He was their first round pick, 25th overall in the 2017 NHL draft. He's a 20-year-old centerman, and this season in the NCAA for St. Cloud State, in 36 games, he had 8 goals and 23 assists for 31 points, and then like I said, in one NHL game, he had 3 goals for a total of 3 points, and I think he can be a really good option for them, potentially even in the top 6 next season. But I know Jesperi Kotkaniemi is going to be a mainstay in the top 6, and then you have guys like Max Domi, who has shown that he can be a good centerman, and then you have Jonathan Drouin as well, and then you have Phillip Danault, who as a 26-year-old had a fantastic season. So it's kind of a good problem that the Montreal Canadiens have in the aspect that you don't really know who your top centermen are going to be heading into next season, but you can never have too many options. And then obviously Nick Suzuki, you never know if he's going to be ready for the NHL next year. Most likely not, but I think Ryan Poehling is going to be, the prospect that does make the leap for them and be a mainstay in the big leagues next year. I think he's going to be a good option on the power play, and like I said, we know he can score goals. He scored 3 goals in his NHL debut, which is very difficult to do, and this draft pick for Montreal, getting this guy 25th overall back in 2017, is looking like it was an amazing pick. And just last year we were talking about how Montreal needs that center for the future, and now they have Kotkaniemi, they have Poehling, Max Domi has shown that he can play center, and then Nick Suzuki as well. They have a pretty good crop of centermen going into the future. So now to finish out talking about Ryan Poehling, if I had to give a prediction on what I think he is capable of doing in his rookie season next year, I think he can be a 20 goal scorer, maybe a guy who can give you 45 to 50 points, and like I said, really be a viable option on the power play. So my final prediction for Poehling in terms of his point totals next year, I think he can be a 25-25 guy and give you 50 points. So hopefully my prediction comes true, hopefully for me and for Montreal Canadiens fans, because this guy I definitely think is going to be a fan favorite there next year and be a really big part of their future. Next up, we have Martin Necas from the Carolina Hurricanes. He was their first round pick, 12th overall in the 2017 NHL draft. He's a 20-year-old centerman, and he played the majority of this past season in the American Hockey League. 64 games played, 16 goals, and 36 assists for 52 points. He was fantastic down there, and he has played in 8 NHL games so far in his career, with a goal and an assist for 2 total points. And honestly, coming into this year, I thought Martin Necas was going to be a full-time NHLer for Carolina heading into the season, but it never is good to, really rush them and put them in the position where they're not really ready for. And I think the 1 year in the American Hockey League where he put up a really good total number of points is going to be great for his confidence heading into next season, and now he really does know what it's like to play a full professional season in North America, and I think he is going to be more than ready to make the complete jump to the NHL next year. And remember, this Carolina team, they made the conference finals, and I think Martin Necas really is going to be a big help for them next year. And as soon as next season, I honestly could see him playing a role as big as the second line center position, and I think that would really help this Carolina team. Obviously, Sebastian Aho is the #1 center, and he will be there for a very long time, and most likely Jordan Staal will start the season out there next year. But I think if Necas can take over that second line center spot and then move Jordan Staal down to the third line center spot, that just gives you an amazing amount of depth at the center position. Talking about having Sebastian Aho and then a rookie in Necas on your second line, maybe play him with a guy like Svechnikov. Maybe not though, because you don't want to play 2 young guys together like that, but I think they have a really good young forward group moving forward, and hopefully they can build on the amazing season that they had this past year. And now getting into what I think he is capable of next season, I honestly would put him as a dark horse to win the Calder Trophy. I'm that high on him. I honestly would have said that last year, but like I said, I don't think throwing him right into the NHL would have been the best idea, and I think it was good that he had a really good season down in the American Hockey League. But honestly, next year, I could see him as a guy that scores maybe 15 to 20 goals, but that's not really where he makes his money. He's a great playmaker. He's going to be a great setup man on the power play for the future with guys like Aho and then Svechnikov. So my point total prediction for him next season, I think he'll be around a 15 goal scorer and then maybe give you 40 to 45 assists. I think he is capable of that, and he is no slouch in the defensive end as well, and that is why I could see him being one of the dark horses for the Calder Trophy. Next up, we have Christian Vesalainen from the Winnipeg Jets. He was their first round pick, 24th overall in the 2017 NHL draft. He's a 19-year-old winger, but he can play the center position as well, so it's always nice to have a multi-position guy. In the 2018-19 season, he played in the American Hockey League, also played over in Finland, but we're just going to look at his American League stats so we can get a gauge on how he did in North American Pro Hockey. 22 games played, 4 goals, 9 assists for 13 points, and in 5 NHL games, he had 1 assist for 1 total point. Playing for this Winnipeg Jets team, I honestly think he is going to get a lot of opportunity to really slot into the lineup and succeed, and you might be asking how, because this is a contending team, they have a lot of good players, and usually young prospects don't just, slot into contending teams, but this is a Winnipeg team, as we all know, that is going to have to give out a lot of money over the next couple of off seasons. This year they have Laine and Connor, who are going to be getting lucrative contracts. They have unrestricted free agents like Kevin Hayes and Tyler Myers. Brandon Tanev you can throw in there as well. Jacob Trouba is a restricted free agent. Josh Morrissey will be next year. So there is going to be a lot of money to give out, and I don't think they're going to be able to bring all of those guys back in terms of the unrestricted free agents. So they're going to be looking for some cheap options, and a Christian Vesalainen on an entry-level contract I think is going to be the perfect option if a guy like a Kevin Hayes leaves or a Brandon Tanev, because I think Vesalainen isn't a rookie that you only have to play in the top 6. Like, when I think of players like that, I think of guys like Eli Tolvanen. Philip Zadina is a guy who I don't think would play well in a bottom 6 role, but I think Christian Vesalainen is kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He can play in the bottom 6, be a defensively responsible guy, but then if you need him to, he can slot into that top 6, play a power play role. He's a skilled guy, and playing with guys like potentially Nikolai Ehlers and Patrick Laine, I think he's going to be in a pretty amazing situation to succeed. So for Christian Vesalainen, I think maybe not the second line center position next year would be best for him. As a rookie, that'd be, a pretty big thing to throw on him, but maybe play him in a winger role in the bottom 6 on the third line, and then give him some run on the second line power play just to get his feet wet. And then maybe if you do end up losing a guy like Kevin Hayes this summer to free agency, if he does show that he is really ready to play a full-time NHL role next season, maybe he can slot into that second line center position and fill the role that Kevin Hayes played after the trade deadline. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. In terms of point prediction, I don't think he's going to be a guy that lights it up on the score sheet, but I definitely think he's going to be a very consistent and steady option for Winnipeg next year. I could see him scoring like 15 goals and having 25 assists and being a guy who gives you 40 points while still being pretty defensively responsible. So I think the future really is bright for Christian Vesalainen, and I definitely think he's going to play a pretty big impact for this Winnipeg Jets team as a cheaper option in maybe the top 6 or the bottom 6 next season. Next up, we have Evan Bouchard from the Edmonton Oilers, and Evan Bouchard is the youngest player on this list, but I have high hopes for him next season. He was a first-round pick by the Oilers, 10th overall in this previous NHL draft. He's a 19-year-old defenseman. Last year in the OHL, 45 games played, 16 goals, and 37 assists for 53 points. 7 NHL games, 1 goal, 0 assists for 1 point. But he did play in the American Hockey League playoffs for the Bakersfield Condors, and in 8 games he had 3 goals and 5 assists for 8 points. So he really did show that he can play a pretty significant role at the pro hockey level already, and I think we'll probably see a little bit of Evan Bouchard in the American Hockey League next year. Now with Ken Holland at the helm, Ken Holland is known for definitely not rushing prospects, and sometimes maybe even giving them a little bit too much time to develop in the minors. But honestly, in my opinion, I think Evan Bouchard is a can't-miss guy, and this Edmonton Oilers team needs all the help that they can get, and a guy like Evan Bouchard, who I think is going to be ready as soon as next season to quarterback a first-unit power play. With guys like Draisaitl and McDavid, I think he can really be deadly in that position, and as we all know, he is an amazing offensive talent at the defenseman position, and his one knock on his game to this point in his career just has been being good in the defensive zone. But if you can find a really solid defensive defenseman, a veteran guy that isn't, always trying to jump up into the rush and isn't the most offensively gifted player, to pair alongside him in even strength and, maybe play him in some protected minutes in 5-on-5 game and just really let him succeed on the power play, I think that could be a role that Evan Bouchard really thrives in next season and can be a really bright spot for them next season. And this Edmonton team, I think they're going to want to try to get back into the playoffs next year, and sometimes you just got to take risks, and I definitely think playing Evan Bouchard in the NHL next season is a risk that they should be willing to take. So getting into my point predictions for him and, what I think he is capable of in his rookie season, I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to be, in the Calder Trophy conversation, but I think he can have a really, really good year and make it a really good step forward in the right direction. I'll say maybe a defenseman who can score 8 to 10 goals, because with his offensive talent, and if he does get an opportunity to play on the power play, I think he'll most definitely be a defenseman who can score 10, and then maybe 25 to 30 assists, and be a guy who can give you, 35 to 40 points. That is a lot to ask for, and I know I'm setting the bar a little bit high, but I'm very high on Evan Bouchard, and I definitely think the Edmonton Oilers should be as well, and Edmonton fans should definitely be excited to see what this guy is capable of at the NHL level for a complete season. Now, finishing off the video with the oldest player in this video, and that is Sam Steele from the Anaheim Ducks. He was their first round pick, 30th overall back in 2016. He's a 21-year-old centerman, and this past season in the American Hockey League, he had a fantastic season, scoring 20 goals and adding 21 assists for 41 total points in 53 American Hockey League games, and he did play in 22 NHL games, had 6 goals and 5 assists for 11 total points. He still is going to be eligible for the Calder Trophy. He's going to be considered a rookie still next season, so that is why I am including him in this video, and I honestly think 100% he will be a full-time NHLer for the Anaheim Ducks next season, and this is an Anaheim team that I really think is going to be looking for a bright spot next season. Definitely their fans are going to be looking for something to latch on to, because they're heading into a rebuilding direction. They've been a good team for a long time, and I think a young guy like Sam Steele is definitely someone that they should focus their rebuild around, and they should show a lot of confidence in him next season and, put him in a role where he's really able to showcase his skills and really able to succeed. And if I had to put a prediction on what I think his point total can be, he's already showed that he can put up decent numbers at the NHL level with 11 points in 22 games. So I think he can be a 20 goal scorer and maybe a 25 to 30 assist guy that could potentially crack 50 points next season, and if he does, I honestly think that would be a huge plus for this Anaheim team, especially moving forward into the future. Pair him along with guys like Andre Kasha, Ricard Raquel. I think you have the makings of a pretty good young core moving forward into the rebuild, so Sam Steele definitely going to be a big part of the Anaheim Ducks future, and I think we're in for a pretty good season from him in the NHL next season. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section who are some prospects that are still going to be eligible to be rookies next year that you really think can be a huge impact player and that are kind of just going to take everyone by surprise next year. And with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.